but what made them decide to call him up now?
The Mets have just been really aggressive on their young pitchers, as we've been discussing, and they're not slow playing these things. It's like, all right, we're getting toward crunch time. Who can help us? And they're just trying to win a World Series here. So however much they're paying you, however much you have, experience, if you're not getting it done right now, they're very fortunate that they have some people in their organization that are worth taking a look at because they've been getting it done at the minor league level. And Sproat is the latest. So that's, and I'm seeing it right now that they've named it. I knew he was starting, and like you said, it looks like it's going to be Sunday. I knew it was either going to be Sunday or Wednesday, just depending how they were gonna shake it out. But look, you might as well give this kid a shot. You don't know if it's going to work. You're not going to hit every time, but I do credit the Mets with saying, all right, I know we chose these other guys to pay and to put in our rotation, but it's time now to just try to win. So, hey, let's see if Brandon Sproat can pitch well in the big leagues. It'd be pretty long odds to say that you're going to hit on 3 out of 3 in the same month in terms of these call-ups, but you might as well try.
Yeah, I mean, no harm in trying. But Danny, how do you think that this will affect the rest of the rotation?
Yeah, I think, listen, he doesn't need to be a Cy Young Award winner. He doesn't need to go out there and go 9 innings, 9 scoreless innings. He doesn't need to do any of that. But what the Mets do need is a little bit of help on the starting side. First of all, having guys like Sean Manaea and Kodai Senga underperforming right now is not only hurting the starters, it's hurting the bullpen, and it's hurting the offense that's playing really well, right? Your bullpen is super taxed, and that's not what you want going into October. You need a little bit of length. You need to start to figure out how you're going to assemble your arms and who you trust. Something that's interesting that I saw this week is that from last year to this year, from 2023 to 2024 in the postseason, starting pitchers were pitching 10% less in the postseason. They averaged 4 1/3 innings in the postseason last year. And the best example I can give you guys is the Dodgers, right? That Dodgers series against the Mets in the postseason last year, the only pitcher that went more than 4 1/3 was Jack Flaherty in game 1, and he went those 7 innings. They had 2 bullpen games, and then everybody else went 4 or 4 1/3. And that is the trend. That is probably what's going to continue this year. And so they need Brandon Sproat to come in and just be his very best. I know there are questions right now about how he's going to perform. Maybe the numbers haven't been dazzling down there, but I'll tell you this. I did cover Brandon Sproat in college at Florida. It's a really self-aware kid, an honest kid. Kevin O'Sullivan is the head coach of that program, and there's nobody better than Sully to get you ready for the next level, to prepare you for that. Obviously, Pete Alonso is a great example, a Florida kid. Harrison Bader, a Florida kid. It goes on and on. Brady Singer, right, who's in the big leagues right now. A ton of Florida guys who know how to play baseball. And when you talk to Brandon Sproat, again, he's honest with, in college, did not have all the success that he wanted, struggled in his first few years there. And then he went to a mental skills coach and started working with a mental skills coach to improve that part of his game, which has helped tremendously. He's got the stuff. Like, he absolutely has the stuff. And hopefully the Mets can put up some run support, as you said, Chelsea, the difference that makes for these young guys. But he doesn't need to come up and be a superhero. He just needs to come up and be Brandon Sproat.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Danny, I mean, Kodai Senga has a 6.18 ERA, and Manaea's numbers are even worse than that. So, Andy, what does the Mets calling up Sproat at this point say to you about how they currently feel about where Senga and Manaea are?
Well, clearly Senga is getting a little timeout time from the rotation. Whether he goes down to the minor leagues or not is currently being discussed between Senga's people and the Mets people. So we're going to see. That'll probably resolve itself within the next 24, 36 hours is what I'm told. But yeah, they're trying to figure out what a plan would be to get Senga to the minor leagues, which he has the right to not do in his contract. But so trying to probably lay out exactly what the steps would be, how this would work. This isn't like optioning some kid, obviously. This is an established guy who just needs to go get right somewhere. And the Mets are hoping it's the minor leagues, and they're working through that. In terms of Manaea, he's more likely than not probably to get another starting opportunity, but you could see him maybe in that David Peterson role in the playoffs. This is just me speaking off the top of my head, not reporting, but Peterson was that guy to get lefties out of the pen against like a Philly team that has a lot of lefties last postseason. Maybe if Minaya, if you don't want him in the rotation, he could try that. Although just overall, if he's ineffective, it used to be that he was pitching well until about the fourth inning, as we saw in Detroit, as we're seeing now. And Sean, if you're watching, I'm so sorry that we're reminding everyone of this awful experience that you had in Comerica Park. But yeah, that was not good from the jump, and he's got this bone chip in his elbow, and he's missed most of the season. He had the oblique that took forever, so they're trying to figure out if he can get right physically in time to help at all this year, I think.
Yeah, I have a quick follow-up, though, as to what you said about Kodai Senga potentially going to the minors. Andy, do you think that Senga would accept that plan to go to the minors? Like, I don't know if that's – obviously it's out of his hands, but, like, would he be okay with that? Like, how do you think he would take that on?
Actually, Chelsea, he has the right to say no. So in his contract, it's unique. But they signed him to a major league contract because he came from Japan, right? So he didn't come through the normal player development system as a player with options. So he has the right to refuse any assignment to the minor leagues. And he'd be within his rights to exercise that right that hasn't been negotiated, that the Mets gave him. But whether or not he's going to buy into it is what they're working on right now, like pretty much as we speak. This is something the agencies and the front offices deal with. Not to mention, I'm sure a coaching staff also trying to talk to the player and the personal relationships that they have. But we will find out if he will accept it soon enough. He'll give the answer to that question that you have, Chelsea, soon enough. In the meantime, they're working on it.
Yeah, for sure. Danny, so what do you think the Mets do with Senga and Minaya at this point? Do they just hope that they figure it out? Or is it time for more drastic action? And I guess I'm kind of putting drastic in quotations here when we talk about sending Senga to the minors. But what do you think they do with the two of them?
I think that you oversupport them, first of all. And Carlos Mendoza does a really good job when he talks about his players and putting the onus on the team. You heard him talking about Ryan Helsley. I know we'll talk about Helsley, that it's up to the Mets to help him figure this out. It's not just on the player to sort these things out. So number one is oversupport these guys and trying to figure out what's going on with them. Number two, I think that those two in particular, and I think that they do, but it's about checking your ego, right? So for Kodai Senga, if he's hurting the big league club because his pitching performances are poor, then maybe it is best to go down to the minor leagues, work some things out. Francisco Alvarez did that. I know he didn't have a choice, but he went down there, worked on some things, checking your ego. It's the only way to win big league games. It's the only way to win in October. It's interesting. I saw this podcast with Mookie Betts, and he was talking about last year's World Series championship team. And he said that they spent more time with each other than they did with their wives. And they were okay if their wives were going to be mad at them, because the only way to win in these types of situations when you're spending all these time with these guys is checking your egos and being willing to do whatever is best for the team. And for Sean Manaea, I love that idea, Andy. The role that David Peterson served, he was a hero last year. The Mets had the success they did because David Peterson was willing to do anything. Like, talk about checking your ego at the door. Whatever role you need me in, I'm willing to do. Those are the most important guys on your team. It's the moments and the performances that nobody pays attention to because you just bridged the gap. You just ate up 2 innings because you didn't have anybody left in your bullpen, but maybe you have Sean Manaea. And I have a feeling Sean Manaea would accept any role as long as he could contribute. And watching him in these games not be able to go through that lineup a second and third time and struggling when you get to those 4th and 5th innings, that is hurting the team, right? You're hurting your bullpen when they have to eat so many innings and you're still trying to figure out, Can Ryan Helsley do this? What role can he play for us? Is Brooks Raley ready to skyrocket into October after coming back from his injury? Like, there's a lot of question marks here, but I think Clay Holmes is going to be a big factor here, right? What more can Clay Holmes do? How much more does he have in the tank for you? What kind of expectations are you going to put on your young guys? I see a lot of chatter, and I'm sure Andy does too, about Brandon Sproat and Jonah Tong and Nolan McLean are going to carry us into October. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not. It's going to be your veteran guys who know how to pitch in October, who teach those younger guys, and hopefully, and the Mets have done this all year, put them in a great position to succeed. It is not Nolan McLean's job to help you win the World Series solely on his shoulders. That's not his job. He's doing his job. He's going above and beyond right now. And I think he'll continue to do it. But remember, this is a rookie. This is still a prospect. He's going to have a game. He might get shelled, and you're going to have to understand that and not be mad because he didn't go 5-0 to start his big league career.
Great points. And I think you'd actually, I know this sort of thing is playing with fire. You're never rooting for a guy on your team to struggle if you're the Mets, but I wouldn't mind seeing McLean and Tong and Sproat go into the postseason having had some struggle at the big league level and coming through it. Because you don't want that first horrible jam that they're in to be in game 2 of the wild card series either. So how they would react to something like that against major league hitters and, if McLean wants to stay on a heater until November 1st and carry the Mets to the World Series, that works too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for dealing with that pressure and getting that under your belt. Not pressure, but struggle, I should say.